going on, guys? It's your average consumer, and if you follow a few tech channels, then you probably already know today is all about the OnePlus 8. And I've actually been using the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro for a couple of weeks now, so we're gonna tell you all about it. And I think it's pretty safe to say that OnePlus has been coming out with some really impressive phones over the last few years. So I think it's kind of interesting that you won't really find that many Americans walking around with it. Now, it kind of makes sense because they're not really in carrier stores. You won't find them like in an AT&T or a Verizon. I do think they did some work with T-Mobile in the past, but you really just won't see them in carrier stores, which definitely leads to less popularity. But this might be the year where things really start to change because T-Mobile and Verizon will be carrying the OnePlus 8. We even did some digging on our channel, and the US accounts for about 31% of our average views. And when it comes to like iPhone content, the US accounts for about 39%. But when it comes to OnePlus, just 12%, guys. That is an incredibly low number, and it's shocking. I would have never expected that. And India is actually the biggest market that watches our OnePlus content, so shout out to India for having diverse tastes when it comes to smartphones. But let's put that aside for a second, and let's talk about why the OnePlus 8 should have most people's attention. Now, taking a look at the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro, OnePlus has again done a really good job at designing these. They really feel like high-end products, which is a bit of a step away from what they used to be in the past, where it was like that budget phone that gave you all the specs that you wanted, but at a really, really cheap price. But now these phones are feeling like flagship products and just a bit under the price of regular flagship devices. So if we take a look at both of them, the OnePlus 8 is rocking like a 6.5-inch display, while the OnePlus 8 Pro is rocking a 6.78, you could just say 6.8-inch display. So they're really big phones, but I actually like the feel of them. I'm used to using bigger phones, so these just feel right at home for me. Ari actually struggled trying to use both of them. She has smaller hands, so if you don't like that bigger display, even the smaller OnePlus 8 has a pretty big 6.5-inch display. It's still not on the level of like the 6.9-inch Galaxy S20 Ultra, but I like the way they feel. Now they feel solid and premium, and they use great materials, but what I really just cannot stand, guys, are the edges of the display. So this is something that I guess OnePlus pretty much copied Samsung with, that waterfall kind of drop off on the sides. I don't like when Samsung does it. I hate that OnePlus took on that feature as well. It is just the most annoying thing ever. I don't know how many times I've scrolled through Instagram, just going down my timeline, and I keep ending up on my own page because my palm hits the last icon on the right, brings up the Your Average Consumer page. I already know what I posted. I don't want to go there by accident. Even Samsung started to move away from that by kind of toning down those edges, but OnePlus hasn't done that just yet. Hopefully in the next one, they do. Now, the only other real comment I have about the feel in the hand is depending on which color you get, you might actually have a different experience holding the device if you don't use a case. Now, the OnePlus 8 comes in Onyx Black, Glacial Green, which I will say, guys, is the best looking color, hands down. I have my reasons, but as you guys can see, that is an awesome color, but it also comes in Interstellar Glow. Now, the OnePlus 8 has one difference. It has ultramarine blue instead of that interstellar glow. Now, the difference in the feel in the hand here that I was talking about is this kind of reminds me of the iPhone. Is that glass back versus that new back that you find on the iPhone 11 Pro. So with this, the ultramarine blue in the hand, it's a bit more slippery. You guys can see that this thing will slide around in my hand and it'll definitely fall out. But if I put it on like a regular surface, it's not moving, it's not going anywhere. But with the Interstellar Glow, it has like a more glass back. This thing is not moving in my hand at all, even though I'm shaking it. It's not moving, but if I put this thing on a surface, it will slip. Throw a case on it. OnePlus has amazing cases. I definitely recommend throwing a case on it for sure, especially if you get this Interstellar Glow. But these are undeniably good looking phones. One thing you'll notice with the display is that it now has a small cutout for the front facing camera in the top left corner. And you barely see it depending on your wallpaper. It's not gonna intrude or get in the way. It's really minimal. I do wish that they kept that pop-up camera from the OnePlus 7 Pro. I thought we were hitting the pinnacle of what front-facing cameras should look like and how the display should really feel. I feel like OnePlus nailed it with the 7 Pro, but I guess Maybe it was just too expensive. I don't know. It was really durable, but it looks like we're really gonna be seeing a lot more of just those punch outs for the front-facing camera. And while we're on the topic of the displays, these are rocking OnePlus's fluid displays, and they actually are AMOLED displays that look really, really good. Now, OnePlus is really toting how accurate the colors are with these displays. And while they are very accurate, it is also a little bit muted with the colors. Now, if you're a professional video editor or photo editor, this might be great. You can edit your photos or videos to be exactly what you want, but I know most people aren't. Most people like to see a vibrant, colorful display, and you can go ahead and change that in the settings. You can go from natural to vivid, which definitely ups the colors a bit. I stayed on this vivid mode for quite some time, but it still felt a little too muted for me. So pro tip, if you want like the really vibrant, colorful screen like I do, go into the advanced settings and change it to AMOLED wide gamut. That is going to make it have that punch, that color that you really want to see. And since then, the screen has just looked amazing for me. But it is cool that OnePlus has been providing these super accurate displays in terms of the color, but I need a lot more of it, so I definitely had to turn on that feature. And of course, this phone has a built-in fingerprint scanner right in the screen. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really been that impressed with that feature as a whole. It works fine, it gets the job done, but I do feel like the face unlock is way faster. OnePlus has like a really fast face unlocking feature, which I personally just love, so that's what I count on the most. But the fingerprint scanner does work well, it's just not as fast as the face unlock. And the last thing I wanna talk about with these displays are the refresh rate. And that's something you're gonna hear a lot in 2020. Refresh rate here, refresh rate there. Samsung has finally provided high refresh rates with that 120 Hertz display. Same with OnePlus, but you'll only find it on the OnePlus Pro. So OnePlus Pro has a 120 Hertz display, while the OnePlus 8 has 90 Hertz. Now with either of these, you're better off than 60 Hertz. It just feels a lot smoother. But for me personally, I can really see the difference between 120 and 90 Hertz. It's just so much smoother, especially if you're gaming. I game a lot on my mobile devices, so I always see a big difference whenever I play a game that supports it. So I really like that 120 Hertz display, but if you're not a big gamer or you don't really think you'll see a big difference, Ari actually couldn't see a huge difference between 90 and 120, but she did see a difference, right?
Yeah, I did. I felt like one just felt like a higher quality screen.
Yes.
Like the way it scrolled.
Yes, it's just a lot smoother.
Yes.
So it's better, but it's not gonna be a big deal for most people. But when you compare either of them to 60 Hertz, it's a pretty big jump. But what OnePlus has done here that I just love is that on the OnePlus 8 Pro, you actually get the option of going up to Quad HD. So you get that Quad HD Plus resolution, which is just a higher resolution since it has a bigger screen than the OnePlus 8. But you also have the option of still using 120 Hertz with it, which is just perfect. At least give us the option, unlike Samsung, where if you choose that Quad HD Plus option for the resolution, you're not gonna get access to 120 Hertz, which kind of makes sense. Samsung might be concerned about the battery life experience for the customers if they just ship it like that, but give us the option. You know, I feel like if we're spending that much money, we should have the option, and that is something that OnePlus has provided us, and it honestly doesn't even impact my battery that much. I get to use the phone quite a bit throughout the day. Honestly, I've been seeing about 6+ hours of screen on time. I can definitely hit like even 7 hours of screen on time if I want. So it's got crazy battery life, and that is because the OnePlus 8 Pro does have a 4,510 milliamp hour battery, while the OnePlus 8 has 4,300 milliamp hours. And with all that said, we're seeing some of the major features and specs on this device that you would expect to see on the mainstream flagship devices, and this doesn't even cost as much. But what OnePlus's problem has been in the past is that it just lacked certain features that you would expect from a flagship device. One of those being wireless charging. The OnePlus 8 Pro does have wireless charging, and OnePlus even came out with their own wireless charger, which has warp charge on it. So you'll get 30 watts charging from a wireless charger, which is just crazy. Right now, I think the standard is about 10 watts. And with this, you can charge the OnePlus 8 Pro up to 50% in 30 minutes. That's pretty similar to what we're seeing with some devices getting plugged in. So that is really, really impressive. You won't get that with the OnePlus 8, so that's one of those benefits of having the bigger, better device. But you also get the option to wirelessly charge another device with the OnePlus 8. So we've seen this feature on Galaxy devices and a few others where you can just take another Qi wireless charging device and put it on top of the phone and it is going to charge it with no problem. And that's one of those features that's just been missing for way too long, but I'm glad that it's finally here, even though it is on the more expensive model. And another feature that's been missing is IP water resistance, but OnePlus has shown in the past that these phones are water resistant. They just don't have the certification for it. They even have product images of the OnePlus 8, I think with some guy in a jacuzzi, people at the pool, and they're insinuating that this thing is gonna be water resistant if you happen to drop it in there and you'll be fine. But I feel like they should just get the certification so people can have their minds at ease and make it official, and they don't have to find out that their phone can survive a few drops of water from like a promotional YouTube video.
Plus got it.
They got
the
it.
money.
They got it. They could do it. And now we gotta talk about the specs, right? Well, this is packing everything you would expect from a 2020 flagship device. It has a Snapdragon 865 processor. You have the option of 8 or 12 gigs of RAM, and storage will go from 128 gigs to 256 gigs. So you can kind of pick your configuration. Now, from a performance standpoint, this phone is fast, you guys, and it has all of that RAM. So if you're jumping between tons of apps and you're working on different things at once, it's gonna be great because not only can you go between all of those apps really quickly, but you also don't have to worry about those apps resetting on you when you try to jump back into them. That's the benefit of having all of that RAM. So it just leads to a really fluid and fast experience, especially with that 120 Hertz. It's the kind of experience you want in 2020. It just feels really good. I haven't noticed any of my games slow down at all, even with low battery life. So I feel pretty good when I'm using this phone. It's just one of the fastest that you'll find on the market right now. Now, something else we can't forget about, guys, is the camera. So with the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro, you're looking at 48 megapixel wide angle camera lens, a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, as well as a 48 megapixel ultra wide angle lens. Now, you don't typically see high megapixel ultra wide cameras, and this is a welcome addition to this phone because that's usually the thing I hate the most about ultra wides. I love the ultra wide lens, but a lot of the phones these days don't really have great quality coming from the ultra wide. But with the OnePlus 8, I've actually been pretty impressed with what I've been able to get out of it. The ultra wides have a lot more detail here and look less grainy than phones you'd see even on like the iPhone 11 Pro. So I'm pretty happy with what OnePlus has been able to do with the ultra wide. But when it comes to the overall quality of the images that you can get out of this, I feel like they have that OnePlus vibe where they're pretty contrasty, not crazy with the colors. But overall, I do think the quality of the cameras are pretty decent. OnePlus has also introduced the ability to do a 30 times zoom. So if you ever need it, you do have access to it. I think it's cool if you need that kind of feature, but the photos that you'll get out of these, you will definitely not be posting anywhere. I'm pretty confident that you won't be, since the quality won't be that great. Another photo feature that I kind of like are the macro photos. You can get really close to a subject, take a photo, and you get to see a lot of that detail. So as somebody who takes a lot of photos, I like having access to these features, so they're all very welcome for me. Now, something I wasn't super crazy about on the front-facing camera would be the color accuracy. I felt like it leaned a bit more towards the cooler side of things. So sometimes I'd have like a cooler tint to my skin tone, so I'd come out like a little bit bluer or purpler, and it just felt a little bit weird and unnatural. Now, something else is just that the exposure can be a little bit on the higher end of things, so things tend to be just maybe slightly overexposed, but as of right now, it's an okay front-facing camera. To be honest, Ari wasn't really impressed. And when it comes to the video quality, I gotta say, I was actually pretty impressed. You can get some really nice depth of field even in video, so those lenses are going to work. And you can of course shoot in 4K, and with optical image stabilization, I think you can pull off some pretty decent shots. And OnePlus has done a lot to include like cine profiles. You can shoot in 4K 60. You're not gonna be able to shoot in 8K, but I think it's safe to say that that's not really a feature that is necessary right now. We're barely seeing 8K displays in TVs, so we don't really need to worry about that just yet. But with the options that they do give us, for me, have been pretty solid. Now, my overall experience with these phones, I've been really enjoying them. I love the 120 Hz display. Of course, it looks really great. Watching content is awesome. Also, you got really loud speakers with these guys. And I feel like I haven't needed to have the volume blasting when watching content. Somewhere that I've been watching a lot of my content these days has been in the shower. You guys might have seen my last video where I kind of talk about the float device that I use in my shower to watch, YouTube videos while showering. And I gotta say, guys, this has been the one device that I've been able to crank up the volume and hear it pretty well, even while showering. And that's one of the few devices that I've been able to pull that off with. So speakers sound great. So being able to play my games, jump between apps, everything that I want to experience from this phone has been really, really solid. And I can also charge it up with the Warp charging just like that. So overall, I do feel like this phone has given me the Android experience that I would want from a flagship device. So this phone does check a lot of the boxes. Now, do I recommend them? Absolutely. I definitely think these are a pretty easy recommendation. At this point, you're not really sacrificing many of the features that you expect from flagship devices. So why not just consider it a flagship? And the prices are actually pretty solid. If you look at the regular OnePlus 8, if you get it from the OnePlus 8 website, if you get it from OnePlus's website, you can find it for as low as $699, while the OnePlus 8 Pro, you can get as low as $899. And you'll also be able to get these off of Amazon, which is really impressive. But the range is from $699 all the way to $999 for the biggest and best model, which is great because a lot of devices, mainstream devices now, start at $999. So OnePlus is still doing a really good job of keeping the prices really low, and this time without sacrificing a lot of the features if you go with the 8 Pro model. So maybe as the OnePlus 8 line starts hitting those carrier stores, we're going to see an increase in popularity amongst Americans. I don't think Americans should be shying away from it since it really does provide a really solid experience. But that about wraps it up for this video, guys. Let me know what you think of the OnePlus 8 Pro. If you're gonna pick one up, you have to get the glacial green. It's the only way to go. It's just the best looking phone. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be the cool guy or girl that gives this video a thumbs up, and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. Till then, it's your average consumer. Peace.